Welcome everyone to one more episode around protecting wildlife. My name is Tanja Andersen and I'm the host of Protecting Wildlife. And today we have an amazing speaker and his name is Ernest Potter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And he is from the organization's Black Eagle Project. And the topic we will talk about today is conservation eagles in. Can you please say the topic, my friend, because that word is a little bit tricky for me.
Yes, so we're talking about conserving eagles in an urban area. So eagles living with people, basically sharing the same area with people.
So yeah, and welcome Vanessa, Ernest. Ernest, this is one of those that is here all the time. Vanessa, and welcome Vanessa. So Ernest, tell us a little bit about this organization. Who is this organization?
Okay, so Black Eagle Project Roodekrans is a bunch of volunteers that basically have two main aims, and that is to educate the public about the black eagles that reside in the Walter Sisulu National Botanical Garden, and then also to conserve these very special eagles that we are very lucky to have in this urban area for future generations to enjoy. So in a nutshell, that is basically the two main aims of the project. And then, like I mentioned, we are all passionate volunteers, and we just love what we do, and we love following these eagles and protecting them.
That's amazing. How did you find this passion from eagles? Where does this passion start?
So for a personal perspective, my journey, how I got involved was when I finished high school, I basically jumped into a new hobby, which was nature photography for me. And I went to this botanical garden that was relatively close to my house. So the botanical garden where these eagles have been for many generations. And while being in the botanical garden, I got this amazing opportunity to see how a juvenile black eagle challenges the adults for prey. It was mantling over the prey, and the adults could not get close to the prey once the juvenile got its talons on it. And I managed to get a little video of this whole interaction between them. Now, I knew there was an existing project at that time, Black Eagle Project. I didn't know who they were or anything. So I tried to get some details about them, and I basically contacted them via email and telling them that I got some amazing footage that I would like to share with the committee of the project. So they invited me to one of their general monthly meetings, and that is where I basically showed them the video of this amazing wildlife situation that I photographed. And them seeing my passion and meeting me in person made them decide that they wanted to get me onto the committee. So that is basically how I joined Black Eagle Project Roodekrans. So this was back in 2012.
That's amazing. So you have worked with us for a few years now. I can hear that.
Yeah, so for 9 years basically now.
That's amazing. And you are a volunteer in the project, or you are part of the project? Just to be clear on that point.
So the entire project consists only of volunteers, but we do have a committee, which is a smaller part of people that all have a certain little job. And this would be like to govern the whole project. Someone to be taking care of technology, someone taking care of operations, etc. So there's about 8 committee members, but all volunteers, so no salaries or anything. And then we've got another whole bunch of people that join the project that are just basically onto the monitoring of them. So they are really passionate about these eagles. So we divide all these people into shifts every weekend and public holidays. And this is where everybody, all the volunteers and committee members have shifts to watch the eagles in the botanical garden with the scope. And this is where we educate the public and basically show them the eagles through the scope and give them more information about the eagles. So that is basically how our project works.
That's amazing. And I can imagine this is the eagle behind you. So the people have like a picture of what is the black eagle.
Yes, so in the back of me is a photo I took a while ago. So we've got two eagles, basically two black eagles that you can clearly see are the adults. And then the brownish one at the bottom is the juvenile. So an interesting fact about these eagles is that once the juvenile leaves the nest, about 2 months after leaving the nest approximately, the juveniles become a bit more confident. And this is when the adults start basically, I would not really use the word aggression because the word aggression for people is much worse, but they basically start to attack these youngsters for a little while, about 2 weeks. And this is kind of the time when the youngsters will get the idea that they are not welcome in the territory anymore. And this is when they'll be pushed out to find their own territories and own mates. So that is exactly what's happening in this photo, is two adults basically being aggressive towards the youngster in that period of time.
And you have taken the picture?
Yes, yeah. I'm a staff photographer and involved in technology for Black Eagle Project. So
yeah, and Ernest is also a safari guide and what you call conservation and wildlife photographer.
Yes, that is correct.
Oh my God, that English word, photographer. I cannot say that word.
No, it's no problem. You said it exactly correctly. So I'm a wildlife photographer, and obviously you can pretty much pick up that photography and wildlife is my passion. So I volunteer for wildlife and I try and do it as a full-time job as well. So I just can't get enough of being in nature and protecting what we've got, our heritage.
True, and it's amazing. Thank you so much for doing that work. So around the eagles, the black eagles, what is the 3 biggest threat they're facing in the wild?
Okay, so specifically for our project, the 3 biggest threats would be, the first one would be habitat loss and / prey availability. So what keeps these eagles where they are now? Like I mentioned, this is an urban area. There's a lot of people, we're in the outskirts of Johannesburg with this pair of eagles. So there's a lot of development and houses around these eagles. But we are scared that at one point, when are we going to have too little bit natural habitat for them? Or when are we going to have too little prey available for their sustainability? So that is definitely for us, probably our biggest threat is the development. And then with prey availability, it kind of can be 2 things. It can be the development taking away potential habitat for prey as well. And then also with the last 2 years with COVID, we've had a lot of people, not making a lot of income because of the economy. So we've seen a little bit more poaching of the natural prey like hares or the rabbits in the area. So that is definitely our biggest threat, I think specifically for our urban pair. Now, the second threat that we also have, which is not as significant as the first one, would be the poisoning of farmers that basically poison carcasses to take care of predators in the area because they want to protect their livestock. Now, black eagles mostly hunt live prey, so they are not too vulnerable for this, but there have been records where black eagles would also scavenge on these carcasses. So obviously, if this carcass was put out with poison, that can be a big threat to the eagles in the area. And then thirdly, a big threat, threat for this is not specifically to the eagles, but to the project, is to continue getting that for passionate volunteers to join the project, and also the funding being a non-profit organization. And I'm sure every non-profit in the world has this as well. You need to keep on getting sources in and passionate people. So I would say those are the 3 most significant threats for the eagles and for our project.
And what is urban area? Just being clear, because I don't know what that is exactly.
So an urban area means that it is a residential area for people. It is not necessarily a big wildlife sanctuary for the birds, meaning that if you look at where these eagles are nesting, 600 meters from their nest, there's a house, people staying there. So they are living among people. They do have the botanical garden, which is kind of like a wildlife sanctuary for them, but it's not a massive botanical garden. So these eagles often fly over people's houses, etc. So that is what's meant with an urban area. They're sharing the habitat with people as well. So, yes.
So one of these three threats, how do we deal with it? Like how did you turn this around to something powerful? Because some people, when they want of fighting for wildlife, sometimes people is like, the hope is not there. So it's like, how do we turn this threat around to something powerful to work with it?
Okay, so I'll discuss this for every single threat the best way I can. Now, the first threat being the loss of habitat is really a difficult and intimidating one in our country, because our country is a developing country, and there's a massive focus on building houses for people because we've got a lot of poverty. So the government really is pushing really hard to build houses for people and, etc. So we kind of have these eagles in the botanical garden, but they use a lot of the natural habitat outside of the garden to hunt as well. So these eagles are basically in a rocky mountainous habitat with a beautiful pristine ridge system that goes out of the botanical garden, and that is exactly what they are using to hunt. Now, we have had a lot of companies that wanted to develop on this pristine ridge, which will basically start taking away their habitat. So we've had a lot of opportunities to, for example, register as impact and affected parties for these developments, to kind of challenge them and make sure that they get their homework done properly before they can continue with development. And we've used our social media and even the news to get people involved in this, because we definitely value these eagles as well. And that is one way of how to get people together to try and assist you to just make sure that this development doesn't just take over and in an unethical way, basically threaten the natural and rare animals in the area. And then another one that we had with the first threat was the loss of prey. So we've seen, as I mentioned before, a little bit of an increase of snares being put out for animals, for people who are starving and hungry, for example. Now, we have a small group of rangers, basically, that monitor these ridges to look for snares. But we've also had the public join in. So that is a nice way to also show the public how involved we are, and getting them educated and part of this process of walking in there and looking for these snares and removing them to protect the wildlife. So that is two ways how we can basically change these threats into opportunities for people to join us in our cause. So with our second threat, the poisoning and farmers. So this problem, I believe, is best resolved with education, because poison is never the answer. It's always has very bad effects throughout the entire natural chain of in wildlife. So it filters down into different levels in wildlife. So educating people about these bad impacts of poison, etc., and doing a campaign, for example, going to local farmers around and try and educate them that there's better ways of controlling predators, etc., than poison. That is definitely, I think, the best way of dealing with that. As I mentioned, it's not as much as a significant risk as the others, but it's always great to get education and educate people on better ways of dealing with these problems. And then our third threat, the sourcing of volunteers and funding. So our project does a lot of work with the public. When I mentioned before that we monitor the eagles on public holidays and also the weekends. And this is really where you need to capitalize on getting new people involved in your company, because you are literally on the ground, face to face with these, with the public, with the people. So first of all, they can see how enthusiastic you are to spend 4 hours there, basically giving a service to them. And this is when you also have to identify other passionate people. You know, some people might just be curious to find out what are you doing. They ask a few questions and you're like, okay, that's nice. And then you see this one person that's just completely hooked and it almost stays the whole 4 hours with you with your shift. And those are the guys that you need to recruit and obviously get into your volunteering program. So that is definitely the best way to do it. I think that face-to-face way. And then we've also ran a lot of social media campaigns to try and get funds, and also people that has also worked for us in the past. So that is how we basically converted these 3 threads into potential strengths for the project.
Before we go into the 5 things people can do in the lifestyle, as we have talked about, so what is the vision for the Black Eagle Project?
What is the vision?
Yes.
Okay, so as I basically said before, our 2 main aims is to educate the public and also to conserve the eagles. But we have a kind of a vision to also expand a little bit more into the research section of this, because we've got a really good opportunity to do some really relevant and useful research on these eagles. So we are actually in the process of installing a live web camera on the nest, which will be probably live in a month or so. And what I'm personally also thinking with this is that to get the public involved in the research as well, because we can have a lot of people, almost eyes on these birds on the nest 24/7, with people all over the world watching them. And I was thinking of getting people involved in the way of reporting prey being brought into the nest. So I would, for example, just create a form and ask the public to tell me, you know, if you see any prey being delivered onto the nest, please just tell me if it's avian, mammalian, etc., a timestamp, and then the date. And if people would, you know, basically assist us with this, we will have a complete record of prey being brought into the nest, which also means that people get involved in our project on a more direct level than just funding, etc. And this is open for everyone around the world. So that is definitely something I would like to see us improve and get into our vision as well, to just get a lot more relevant research and information on the eagles.
So the 5 steps, as we have talked about before, and to you, dear audience, is 5 steps smallest as a person can do for conservation. And yes, the first is stop using poison, or you have sent it in the garden or around your house. Keep natural areas clean and do not litter. Can you please talk a little bit about the 5 steps you have text me about?
Yes, sure. Okay, so I'll start with the first one. So the first step I recommended for people, so there's these small little steps that each individual can do to basically benefit the planet and wildlife in general. So the first one is to stop using poison in your garden and around your house. So we still see in South Africa, for example, a lot of people that buy ant poison and poison for their plants. And this has a very big negative effect on the natural environment. Like I mentioned before, it goes into next levels. You start spraying poison on a plant, and then when that bee comes and lands on that plant to pollinate it, it picks up some of that poison. And if a bee eater catches that bee, that poison gets transferred to the bird. So it's really such a destructive way of controlling insects in your garden. So that is definitely why I do not recommend anyone use poison at all for insects, for plants, etc. So that would be amazing if people can start phasing out poison, and that will definitely benefit the biodiversity in the environment around you. Okay, so that was the first one. The second action that people can take based on the recommendations I gave is to keep the natural areas clean and do not litter. So that basically means that if you're visiting an area that you value, like let's use the Botanical Garden as an example, do not go there and have a picnic and leave all your leftover papers and plastic laying around, you know. You have to also set an example for other people. You must always remember that people are looking at you even though you don't notice it. So if you're walking around in a beautiful natural park, etc., and you pick up a piece of paper in front of someone, that is setting an example, and that makes them think, you know what, I love this place. I come here often. I want it to be clean. So to not litter and to also clean up other people's litter is definitely a good step that every one of us can take. Okay. And then the third action that I recommended is stop supporting farmers who are not predator friendly. Now, this can be a little bit tricky because there's limited information on this, but we all are linked to the internet and we can get a lot of information these days. So it would be good to try and find out which of these farmers are, you know, actually not destroying the natural biodiversity by killing predators to keep their livestock. Now, I know even in Europe, because I've got a lot of friends, the conflict between wolves and people are a big problem, but there are some fantastic solutions to keep these wolves and your livestock from each other without killing them. And we have kind of the same thing in South Africa, where farmers would still just prefer to shoot animals instead of relocating them or finding more creative ways of dealing it. But as soon as the consumer starts preferring to support farmers that are predator friendly, these farmers that do not comply with this are going to be forced to also change their ways. So this is kind of, I think, opportunity for the younger generation to start showing the older generation that we need to change, and we're not going to support you if you guys do not change, because predators are not meant to be killed in a big scale like that. They are not herbivores that you know, basically get a lot of babies, or you know, the English is failing me a bit now, but reproduce that much as herbivores. So we cannot continue wiping out predators. It's really very destructive for our biodiversity in all around the world. Okay. The fourth action that
before you go to the next one, so when you talk about wolves, there's funny facts around that in USA, because I think it's like Yellowstone. For many years ago, there was like the areas was not like, there was no flowers, it was not green, it was like dead area. And you put wolves in that to Yellowstone, and the bioverse was just blooming with animals, insects, and all that. So to have wolves, to have predators is a big important, what you call it, is so important for everything is going around in the circle, to have a healthy balance in nature. And what they find out, the Wolf Watchers, this organization in the USA, was to put donkeys in the farmers area, like donkeys with the what you call the sheep, the goats, and all that, because the wolves don't like donkeys. And I think it was so funny facts, like, oh my God, you're kidding. The wolves don't like donkeys.
Yes,
so there is solution on
you.
everything.
Yes, and you see, that was a very smart and clever idea how to control the interactions or the conflict between the sheep and the wolves, because these donkeys are very stubborn animals and they would actually chase the wolves out. So that is, we need more of this creative ideas to coexist with this, with all the natural wildlife, because we're all on the same planet, you know, we need to learn how to live together. So that is a great example that you gave now. And yes, I can relate to that story with Yellowstone. I've also read up some information on that, where like you mentioned, they basically reintroduced wolves, and that had such a massive impact. It even changed the rivers in the park. That's how big impact reintroducing wolves had to the park. And that is how everything works in nature. Everything is linked to each other. It's a big, massive link. And as soon as you remove one of the players, the whole system can collapse. And that is the education that we need to basically promote and get out there, so that people understand we need biodiversity. The more biodiversity we've got, the better the condition of the environment and the whole planet will be.
Beautiful.
Yes. Okay, so I'll continue to point number 4 now. So the fourth recommendation, a small action that I gave, is that we need to go digital and start printing less paper. So this is obviously also more relevant to the younger generation. We've grown up in this digital world. Before our generation, people would have printed every single thing, but we still see a lot of printing happening, which can be very unnecessary. And obviously, if there's a big demand for paper, people are going to start replacing natural forests with these plantations to produce more paper, which is very, in fact, impacts the habitat and the environment really negatively. So the best way to do that is just to not use as much paper, and that way we will be able to conserve more of our big forests instead of creating these alien tree plantations all around the world to produce paper. Okay, and then the fifth action that I can recommend for people is also similar to the fourth one, but that is to use paper bags instead of plastic bags. So in South Africa, we're unfortunately still seeing a lot of plastic bags being sold at grocery stores. And most people unfortunately use these plastic bags as a once-off deal. They go into the queue, they purchase all their stuff, and they say they buy a few of these plastic bags. And as soon as they get home, they just throw them in the dustbin. And that is obviously one of the biggest problems that we've got in the world at the moment, is all the plastic that is going into the ocean. So a great way of stopping this, there's a few ways really. I've been to Rwanda in Central Africa, and they actually made plastic bags illegal as a whole country. So that is a great example they're setting for a lot of governments. If governments, all of them can just follow that. But obviously from a government point of view, an individual does not have that much influence. However, we can definitely purchase big, strong paper bags and reuse them every time. So for me, I always have 5 big paper bags in my car that I just keep in there. If I ever need to do shopping and can't prepare for it by getting the bags, they're already in the car, and I can just use them instead of buying plastic bags to get all the groceries in my vehicle. So that is basically the 5 small actions that I can recommend anyone can take. It really is not that difficult to implement in your life. And if we get a lot of people doing that, it will make a massive difference, and very quickly, I believe.
Beautiful. And these 5 steps is like also what you're talking about is all about the small step, because when each and everyone making a small step, it making the big impact. And the 5 step is also about all about how to make a change in the circle of life to serve the animals. So we really get to look inside ourselves, look at our habits, our choice in life, to see where can we really make a change. Like take fruits with no plastic and pay a little bit more, or yes, always think about how can I change a small step every day. And in the future, it will be like a habit, and you don't think about that change you're making, because it will be just natural for you to do that choice in life.
Yes, and with these steps, you can also educate people. Once you have basically made this part of your life, don't forget that other people also need to. So if you see people in a store with plastic bags, tell them, you know what, that is very destructive. Look what I've got. I've got nice, beautiful paper bags with, let's say, a print of the big 5 on them, and, try and entice them to change as well. And that goes for all the steps you take. Always try to set that example, and you'll be surprised that you might not be able to convert 10 people, but if you can convert 1 person a day, that will make a big chain reaction in the future.
Exactly, because when we are making impact on 1 person, that person make an impact another one, that person make an impact another one, and it's getting bigger and bigger. I'm back in business. Okay.
Welcome back.
Welcome. Thank you, my friend. So do you have something you feel called to share to the audience, like the last things before we are ending this interview? Is there something you want to share?
Well, I made a small little photo presentation of some Black Eagle photos, if you guys are interested, just to show you how these eagles in a bit more detail in this. It's just about 7 slides if you are interested, as it is a very pretty eagle.
You are a host now, my friend.
Okay, perfect. And then I will just quickly share my second screen with you guys for the viewers that want to see. Okay, so you guys should be seeing my screen now.
Yeah.
So in this photo, we're looking at one of the male black eagles in flight. This male was called Tulani, and then, as I mentioned before, they actually have a 2-meter wingspan. So this is really a massive eagle. Very, if you're from Europe, very close to the size of a golden eagle, for example.
That's a big bird.
Yes. And then in this photo, we've got the two, both the male and the female, that were landing very close to each other at the same time, which was a very cute little photo to get. And then you can just see those amazing, beautiful talons they've got, which they obviously are their main tools for hunting.
Yeah.
And then here we've got a close-up of an adult black eagle. And you can actually see the nictitating membrane covering the eye. So that is a transparent third eyelid that protects the eye if need be.
Oh, wow.
Now, I will tell you why this is basically my favorite eagle. And in this photo, we are looking at the back of a black eagle. But if you look closely and you use a little bit of imagination, I'm sure you guys will agree with me that they kind of have an angel on their backs. So we've got the 2 wings and the gown. So it's just, for our project, it's been a very interesting marketing strategy about talking about these eagles with their angels on their backs. And a lot of people have fallen in love with that.
Oh, that is cute.
And then the next photo is just the beautiful weapons on these amazing black eagles. Something that a lot of the prey and even some people respect very well, because they are very powerful and very big talons.
Mm. Oh, wow, that
this
is
was one of my favorite photos of our iconic female that unfortunately disappeared in 2016. So her name was Emoyeni, and I managed to get this photo using a very slow shutter speed, which basically shows the movement with the blurry background and gives a little bit of a 3D effect to the photo. And then I mentioned before, they live in an urban area. Now, they actually breed got a nest very close to a natural waterfall in the Botanical Garden. So you can just imagine how beautiful it is to come view these eagles in this beautiful Botanical Garden, where you can see them flying over the waterfall like this. And then the next photo will illustrate a bigger picture. And if you take photos of them at night, you can see they're in the city with all those lights in the houses in the background. So that is what I basically meant with urban pair. So that is just a few photos that I wanted to share with you guys, just to show the beauty of these magnificent birds.
Thank you so much for sharing. Also give me like the audience like an idea on the birds, where they're coming from, what you're talking about, the areas, and it's very beautiful to see like the angel behind. And I think that is a beautiful message around like what is animals on this earth, because the animals is our angel to have a healthy balance on earth. With that knowledge you have now, what guidance would you want to give to the viewers to make a change in their lifestyle?
Okay. Well, the guidance I would give is that you kind of have to drive these changes with passion. That is always the best way to do it. So get passionate about this and get passionate about changing other people. It might be difficult in the beginning, but it will definitely be worth it at the end of the day. And you also don't know what you can't or can accomplish until you have accomplished it. So definitely passion would be the key word here. You have to just go for it. And like I mentioned, as soon as you get other people interested and show that example for them, they will also convert, and you will become a community of people that's just uplifting each other in these good ways. And that is basically how I got involved in the Black Eagle Project. So I really do believe that that is the best way of going about this, because it can be challenging to continue, improving yourself, etc. But at the end of the day, it definitely is worth it.
Yeah, exactly. On that, what is coming up to me is like, it can be challenging, it can be uncomfortable to really make a change, to create a new habits, to change your lifestyle. So what really support me is always like think about the higher purpose. And for me, is like, the animals don't care about me to be perfect. The animals don't care about me to make mistakes. The animals just need me to just do it and fail big and make a lot of mistakes, because they don't have the time for me to figure things out and to be perfect, to have everything right. They need me to make the actions, and they don't care about like I speak correct English. They don't care. They just need me to showing up and inspire others and be a better person for every day, because every day is a new moment to make a change, new change compared to where you come from yesterday. So that's maybe something that will support me to telling myself is like, the animals don't care about my mistakes.
Yes, that is a very good way of looking at, because we all are going to have ups and downs. But at the end of the day, you just have to think about that end goal. Where do you want to end up? And that is the best way of getting yourself forward. So, no, very well said there. Well, I would like to thank you guys for this opportunity, first of all. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I'm glad, and I hope that the people have enjoyed it as well and maybe learned something from it. And then, yeah, once again, guys, make it your passion and follow it, and, follow your dreams. You don't know what you can achieve until you have done it. And once you're at that final destination, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, that was easy. It might not feel easy while you're doing it, but at the end, you probably is going to feel, and you're just going to be inspired to do more. So I'd like to end off by that last sentence, and then thanking Tanja once again for this amazing opportunity. And I hope for the best for the next webinars, and I'm sure you guys are going to have some amazing content, and I entice everybody to follow you and watch it as well.
Thank you, Ernest. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you to you, Vanessa. It has been amazing time together, and I know a lot of people get a lot of important mess around it when they pass around eagles, when they don't pass about eagles, because there's so much knowledge to get out of it, to have like different kind of eyes on. It's all about like how you look at and a message. If you're passing around animals, if you're passing about nature, humans, because there's so much value in this. It's all about like changing and be aware about like the footprints you're making in this earth, and what you're saying about the 5 steps is all about like be aware about the footprints you're making every day in your lifestyle.
Yes, no, I 100% agree with you.
So out there, please give some love and give some feedback to the Black Eagle Project. They need that, because more we are sharing is also caring, and we get to learn how to be a giver instead of a taker. So thank you so much, everyone, to have a look and be here together with us, and see you next time, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.